Hey guys, welcome back to the Taekwondo podcast. Today our guest is Ali Ghafour. I hope you guys enjoy his story as Taekwondo athlete to CEO.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode from the Taekwondo podcast. We have a special guest today, Ali Ghafour. He is a veteran in the sport. He's been in Canadian Taekwondo for a very, very long time, a four-time national champion, if I'm not mistaken. In my opinion, I do believe that Ali was ahead of his time back in the day. The things that he was doing to win fights, we didn't start seeing more of that until later on in the years when the game kind of started transitioning a little bit more. But instead of me bragging about you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Nice intro here.
Sure. Thanks, guys, for having me. Taekwondo is a big passion of mine. Martial arts is a big passion of mine. We'll get into that, I'm sure, in detail. But in terms of athletic career, just to kind of set the ground for credibility, started when I was 13, which is actually kind of late. Retired when I was 27. My last fight on the mat was 2007 Pan Am Games in Brazil. And then throughout that, obviously, there was a lot of things going on. So made the national team the first time at 23, right after I finished university. And then kept on winning, except for 1 year. I'm going to blame Yannick for that. But he was a good fighter to lose to in 2004. But then from 2003, 2005, 2006, 2007, was national champion for bantamweight. And yeah, I went to 3 world championships, 2 university games, Pan Am Games. Was almost there for the 2008 Olympics. Didn't quite make the last 2 cut. I was in the top 4. And yeah, then stayed in the sport. Took a break 2 years after that cold turkey. Didn't do anything. Then started coaching, and then now I'm all in it again with 2020 Armor in a totally different way. So that's a quick background.
Yeah, I feel like you just can't if you've been really involved with the sport, it's just really hard to leave. Like even for myself, I was not nearly as involved as you, but after so many years, here I am again. We're talking Taekwondo again.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's something. I'm just gonna turn off these dang notifications. It's I think one of the things we're gonna talk about is kind of how this permeates your life. But who I am, what I eat, the way I talk, who my friends are, how I met my wife, or why she likes me. It's all because of the sport, right? And it permeates every part of everything that I do, from my personal to my obviously Taekwondo career, but also my professional career. And you just can't get away from it. And for me, I'm just so thankful, and I just wish people had the same opportunity. It's something that's so weird is I've met people in my life that no one has ever told them that they can do something beyond what they're capable of. It sounds so ridiculous to me, right? Like, we're just so used to that in training in martial arts that your coach will tell you, or your training partner will tell you, but no one's ever told them that they could do something more than they can. And I just found that so weird. And so, it's just, it's a great part of my life, and I want to continue giving that to other people because, it's just made my life so much more valuable and worthwhile.
Oh, definitely. Even for myself, Taekwondo training on its own has influenced me so much, even as a coach now in strength conditioning, powerlifting. And there's that little part of me that thinks, I guess, differently from the typical powerlifter, and a lot of that came from Taekwondo. We've gone through those long, grueling training days where you literally beat the crap out of each other up, but like strength sports now, it's not quite like that. You get under the bar, you lift X amount of weights, you hit amount of volume, and that's it. It doesn't have the same competitive nature and I think that really influences us in multiple aspects of life, to really keep striving forward, and there's always room to grow.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what the beauty of combat sports are. Like when you're fighting yourself, so in running, weightlifting, those things, that's a certain mentality. That's a great mentality. But then when you throw another variable of somebody else in there, and you can't predict what they're doing, I always like Mike Tyson's quote. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Yeah. It's just you just have to adapt, and I just love the adaptability of martial arts. And martial arts in general, and that is what life is, right? Life is never always up and down, straight 100 meters, and there's all these other things you have to compensate for, and I think martial arts has that built in, and that's what I really like about it. Yeah,
because like with athletes, especially like weightlifters, there's days when like oh, I don't feel so good. Today just wasn't my day. There wasn't any of that in Taekwondo. It's like, okay, training starts now. Like, you're sore?
Yeah.
Well, you gotta suck it up. You know,
Yeah,
or
and
like,
if you have a
you
bad
just have
day,
to find ways around it.
exactly. And if you have a bad day and you're sparring with somebody, well, too bad.
You're gonna get kicked.
You
Yeah.
know, like, you're gonna hurt. So like you're forced again to then bring up to this
Yeah.
level. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Let's wind it back. So you said you started Taekwondo when you were 13 years old?
13
So
years.
especially for a competitive athlete, especially in Taekwondo, that's considered a little later.
Yeah.
But at 13, actually, because I own a Taekwondo school now, I'm finding the 13-year-olds is kind of that time where you see most of them drop off.
Yeah.
What was the reason why you started at 13?
Yeah. Our data shows, so me, William, and Tony, between all the clubs that they own, 70% of the members are from the age of 7 to 13, and that's exactly the same time they kind of drop off. You know, being a teenager, you gotta be cool all of a sudden. For me, it was weird. My neighbors, so I was watching a Van Damme movie, and I was at the neighbor's house, and they saw that I liked martial arts, and their kids were taking it. They're like, why don't you try to take a class? And then I just never stopped. It was clearly something that resonated with me. I don't know why. And I never did any other sports. I mean, not to this level, obviously. And I just kind of stuck with it. I wasn't good. You know, that's the funny thing. A lot of people assume, you know, they see people's kind of, what they deem as success, and then they assume they're always like that.
Yeah.
No, man, I got my butt kicked a lot. I used to wear these goggles, like these, cause I had, contacts, and I didn't have contacts back then. And I was like super skinny, and I got my butt kicked a lot. But I have this trait, and I realized this throughout my years, where I don't care what people think. I give talks about this as well. I really only care about the opinion of people I respect. And I didn't realize that when I was 13, but that was something that was built in. So I wasn't good. I was awkward. But there was something that I just kind of enjoyed, and I just kind of stuck through it. And I think maybe to your question, why do some people stop at 13? I think it's maybe part of it is because there's that I kind of still need to look cool, and this isn't cool anymore. Because there's a lot of cool people to look up to in other sports. Ronaldo, name any sort of hockey player, LeBron. Like, I want to be like that, but there isn't anyone that the general public knows for martial arts. So I think that's part of it in my mind, and that's part of what I'm trying to change as well. But yeah, so for me, it was not caring about what other people thought. I enjoyed it. It took a while for me it took 10 years from 13 to 23 to win my first national, so it was a long time put in, an effort. And I think that's just because I just didn't care what people thought.
And how many nationals did you do before you finally made the podium?
Yeah, my first, so I competed which is funny because it's not normal, right? I competed at my first provincials or tournament 3 months after I started. But my first nationals that I competed at was 1996, so 3 years after I started.
Okay.
And I lost a bunch of them, maybe got bronze at a couple, and then won my first one at 2003. I was 23.
And then, like the Taekwondo school that you're from in Toronto has like a big history of competitive athletes. Did you kind of look up to them and saw these top guys that you were training with in the same gym? Is that maybe part of the reason why?
Oh yeah.
You looked at them as like cool, or someone that you wanted to strive
That's a good
to
point.
be?
Yeah, I didn't think about that. You know what? You're right. But I didn't start at that gym.
Okay.
I started another gym, which equally had great people, not with the same kind of, I guess, history or big names as Yangchang Taekwondo, where I eventually moved at the age of 16. So from 13 to 16, I was at Colin James Taekwondo, which doesn't exist anymore. The man was a great person. He was a great mentor. But he wasn't a LeBron James or anyone like that, right? There's very few people in martial arts that have that sort of star power. But so it wasn't that kept me in it. The meeting those people and looking up to those kind of stars in the sport only kind of helped me become a better competitor, but it wasn't what was the driving force in the early days.
Cool. And then like I saw some of your comments on Facebook with the post on the Dragon's Den.
Mm-hmm.
And then so a lot of people always go back to back in the day.
Yeah.
But they don't realize that, yes, you are like a founder of this company, but you were also back in the day.
Yeah.
What do you have to say to like the naysayers saying, oh, back in the day it was way better than it is now? Obviously there's some positives to the way
Absolutely.
things were done before.
Yeah.
And you know, we might have lost touch to some of those things, but, yeah, basically what's your opinion on the new things that are going on in Taekwondo and where you want to see things go?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, people's comments. I mean, they don't know who I am. They don't know my background. They don't know they see a 2-minute clip and they make assumptions, which is, I mean, it's the nature of the internet today. Yeah. So I categorized Taekwondo specifically into like 3 eras. I call the power era, the combination era, and today's era, which I call the cut kick era or electronic scoring era. So the power era was cool, man. I mean, there's old clips you find on YouTube. I kind of I started in that era, I guess. You kick hard, man. I mean, because you have to convince a human that was a point.
Yeah.
And they weren't giving you the scores weren't 8-6 in a round. It was boxing rules. It's like, did you win that round or not? So it was like 1-0. And if you really hurt the guy, it was like 2-1, right? So it literally was inverse boxing. Boxing is like 10-9 system, right? And so Taekwondo was like that. And then at the end of the 3rd round, it might have been like 1-0, 2-1. But man, the fighters kicked hard. And so because you have to fight so hard, there's a lot of knockouts because that was a guaranteed win. Like there's no disputing a knockout. Like you're on the ground, that's it. So people fought like that. But I mean, the scoring was so confusing. Like, why is that a point? Why was that not a point? Why is it 10-1? Same problem with boxing. They give no idea why a round is 10-9, 10-8 today, right? It's frustrating. So you have the confusion in scoring. You have every time you have any sort of humans, there's going to be bias and corruption, and there's a lot of waiting. Fighters. There's a lot of bouncing. Dude, remember 3 rounds, 3 minutes, man. That's long fights, right? That's like 12 minutes a match, right?
Yeah.
And I would say 80% of that was kind of stepping and waiting.
Oh,
No one's really, that's not really fun to watch, right? So pros. Powerful, strong kicks, knockouts, cons, lots of waiting, human error, and bias. So that's power era. Then you got the combination era. I think this was probably the best, where you had trigger scoring, not electronic scoring with the chest protectors, and then judges were accountable. Like when a kick happened, if they didn't score, they kind of have to quote unquote answer to the audience, right? They're like, you didn't see that? Why didn't you push the trigger? So now you see the scores going up. So now you're seeing 4-6, 10-11, all that kind of stuff. And now you got the audience engaged because they see in real time what's happening. So you had people throwing combinations, doubles, that sort of stuff, and that was exciting. But there's still human error and bias, and that was, I think, in my opinion, the peak. So 2008 Olympics, minus that big controversy at the Olympics that made it change to electronic scoring. Yep. Those were some exciting matches. If you Google those ones, those are, in my opinion, the most fun to watch. Then you got electronics. Got rid of the human error and bias, but man, it's just boring fights. I've been to, I don't know how many world championships and games, and people in the audience are the competitors and their families. There's no general public watching Taekwondo, and that's not good for the sport. We did a study at the last 2 Olympics. Taekwondo was ranked tied for dead last for TV viewership, tied with modern pentathlon. And no one's going to put those stats up, but we took a look at that, and it's like that's not good for the sport, right? And a lot of it is because, okay, now you've lost the athleticism, right? Because people are just doing kicks just enough to score, so grazing, cut kicks, and that's about it. The rules are changing a little bit better, but still not the way we used to before. And on top of that, scoring's still confusing. Like you still don't know what's going on. There's like so many rules. General public looks at it as like, I'll just watch a soccer game. A ball goes into a net. A basketball game, a ball goes into a net. A hockey game, ball goes into a net. I don't need 20 minutes to explain to somebody what's going on. And so that's the era that we're in today. And then so what we're saying is, hey, there's good things in each era. Power era was strong. Combination era was fast. Cut kick era had the fairness. Why can't we bring all those things together? But all of those eras, what they were missing was the scoring was impossible to understand. Yes. So throw in easy to understand scoring, put in the power, put in the combinations, then you have something that I think the general public will watch and enjoy. Because if you think about it, there's 240 million people that practice striking martial arts, Taekwondo, karate, all that kind of stuff. It's about the same number of people that practice soccer. But martial arts don't have that same viewing power and purchasing power as soccer does, right? And that star power. But why not? There's the same amount of practitioners. The number one reason is that viewability. Right now you have MMA and boxing as the two biggest martial arts in kind of the public's eye. But a parent doesn't watch an MMA fight and a boxing match and say, I want my kids in that. It catered to a specific type of audience. Second, MMA fights happen randomly. You don't know when the next one is. And if it does happen, the top fighter usually is injured, right? So there's no continuity. And then the score is impossible to understand. So you got this, like, it's not clean, it's not consistent, the scoring's impossible, and similar with boxing. And then so martial arts is kind of stuck in not being that same size as these sports like soccer can be. And that's what we're building to make martial arts easy to understand. Put it on a consistent schedule. Make tournaments happen every month. Make a semifinal, make a final, plan something around it, and make it professional, make it clean, and make it easy to understand. Then we can make this sport larger than make it a professional, viewable sport larger than something like soccer. So that's kind of where it was, the power, the combination, cut, kick area, and where we're trying to go.
I think the biggest thing that you mentioned there was that, understanding all these eras, but actively trying to bring it all together into one whole. Now, one of the problems that we see, I wouldn't say problem, but one of the common trends that we notice, especially from like the more old school coaches, is that they're stuck in their eras. Back in the day, we did this. Unfortunately, times have changed. Technology has changed, whether we like it or not. And it's kind of up to us as coaches and athletes to rise up and adapt. People are not wanting to adapt, and instead they keep talking about, back in the day, I did this. Back in the day, I did. Well, that's good. It worked back then. But what are we doing now? How can we bring what we did back then now to accommodate and complement the system we have now?
Yeah, and I think that's I try to say that in my message is that it's not going to be exactly like back in the day. Absolutely. And we don't want it to be exactly like back in the day because there was issues back in the day as well, right? But there are good things that happened back in the day. And the message I'm trying to say is I'm trying to bring the good stuff from then and then put it in. Like one major thing, for example, and I think this was an issue, kind of wasn't an issue back in the day because you really had to hit hard. But today, as an athlete, when you fight, you don't get rewarded for the effort you put in. If I hit you to the body 3 times as hard as you hit me to the body, it's still 1-1. Well, 2-2 in today's day scoring. Right? So you're not incentivized to do any more than the minimum. And so you don't take any more risk. So both athletes take the same amount of general risk. Where in our system, if you hit twice as hard, you get rewarded for you take off twice as much energy. So you're going to take more risk, you're going to do more things, and we're going to reward you effectively for that. And I think that's a good thing. So that you bring that power back into the game. That's what we had back in the day. Back in the day, there was a lot of stepping because you didn't want to get hurt from someone like blasting you in the arm, right? So you had people move around a lot. Same thing in our system. You're going to have to move to avoid getting hit. So there's a lot of elements from back in the day that are coming, and we see that. I mean, we have the advantage because we're seeing this ahead of most people. We're seeing kids training in the club. We see how they literally change from electron scoring or maybe just even basic Kogu sparring to our system. Like they fight like what we think they would fight. They go in, they try hard, they're not scared because they think they're playing a video game, right? Yeah. They kick and then they see a light go off. It's that's fun. They forget about their foot hurting, right? Because they're having fun, right? Whereas when they're just hitting a chest protector, okay, you hit somebody, but did you actually score? I don't know, but my foot kind of hurts.
Yeah, it kind of takes your attention away,
right? Yeah. And your coach and the instructor isn't focusing only on you because you got 20, 30 kids to watch at the same time. So it's not like you can focus on everybody at the same all at once. And so that's the stuff that is the benefit of this, right? And unfortunately, a 2-minute video will never convey that to an old school guy, and so it's a matter of time, and I think that's just what it'll take.
Now, I want to go more into your 2020 armor and stuff like that in a little bit, but I want to kind of bring it back a little bit. Now, we were on the topic of back in the day. Now, I remember
Yeah.
back in the day, your training partner, Ekmal, he was featherweight and you are bantamweight. So, for those that you don't know, the Olympic weight classes combine categories. So, feather would be with bantam together. So, at some point, at one of the karting games, I think it was just karting games, you guys fought together.
Yeah.
And from previous conversation, I remember you saying that it was unheard of. It never happened before.
Yeah.
And these days we see a lot of athletes that are very hesitant and very timid to fight their own peers or compete against their own peers. We see that in all sports. Even in powerlifting at world championships, people would avoid being in the same weight class in order to not compete against each other because, he's my buddy. What was that experience like? Kind of like 24 hours out. Like, what was that like? You know that you're gonna compete against him. You guys know you guys are kind of the best in the class. What was that experience like?
Yeah. It's funny because I think maybe because we had a very strong relationship, me and Akmal, we still do today. I consider him one of my best friends. Maybe it was because of that. It was easier. I don't know. But the way, and our coach always said this, and maybe this is another reason, is when you fight, it's just for those 6 minutes. That's it. And whatever happens in the ring stays in the ring, and then you move on. Yeah. So there's going to be days, and we trained all the time together. We're training partners. There's going to be days I beat him, and there's days he beat me. He chipped my tooth. I broke his rib. Like, it just happens, right? One day you're on, one day you're off. And just because that person won that day doesn't mean that, that you're, the other person's lesser all of a sudden, or, your friendships will suffer. It's just, we kind of understood that a fight is a fight. It's contained in a time frame, and the results of, and it doesn't mean that that's going to be the consistent result going forward because, so many variables change. And I think because we had that maturity in us, and maybe because we were older, right, I started at 13, Akmal started at 16. He was actually even older when he started. And he's actually a great communicator as well. And so I think because we were older, we were good friends, we were strong communicators, we had coaches that tell us that when you fight, and then afterwards you be friends. Those were all instilled in us. And so maybe today, the people that suffer from not being able to kind of deal with that don't have those things ingrained in them, and it's probably hard for them to get over it. But yeah, I mean, and especially in today's game where the athletes fight so much, they fight so often, right? I mean, it's inevitable that you're going to fight each other, and so it's just, and there can only be so many winners. You just have to kind of. You just kind of have to do it. Yeah, that's the only way I can explain it. And then if it comes to the point where the two friends are so close and it's one or the other for their goals, then the best person just has to win, man.
Yeah,
that's
no,
it,
for sure.
right? Because if you let the other person win and they're not better, they're going to lose at some point later on, right? Because someone else is going to beat them, right? So it doesn't help them to kind of give way. So yeah.
And I remember back then when me and this guy trained, this guy broke my hand.
Yeah, man.
And it broke my hand. I had to drive myself to the hospital. I was driving stick shift at the time. Like, my hand's all warped out of shape. I'm like, I text him up. I'm like, dude, man, you broke my hand. And this was like, I don't know how many weeks out from, I think of US Open or something.
Yeah.
But, no, definitely. I think that, a lot of times on a coach's behalf as well, they need to really communicate that, hey, it's okay. You guys are still going to be friends afterwards. But right now, you have to worry about yourself as an athlete. You have to worry about your success, your career as an athlete first, and just let everything unfold as it should.
Yeah, and the last, I think I mentioned 4 reasons why it didn't impact us. The last one was that it's very rare, and you should be very thankful to have someone that can push you at that level all the time. Because as you guys know, as you go into different parts of the country, especially in Canada, the smaller the city, the harder it is to find a training partner, right? And to push you all the time. And so here you have someone that is always, like you're here and he's like pushing you this way. That's an amazing, you should be blessed to have that, right? And you're getting that all the time. So not everyone has that. And that's just going to make you better. So that's another way to look at it as well.
All right, let's put it forward a couple more years. Once, I guess I don't even know, when you were finished competing, did you immediately go into the whole entrepreneurship journey, or was that something you were doing as an athlete, or can you just let us know about that?
Yeah. So I finished a degree in computer science. I graduated in 2002 and made the national team for the first time in 2003 because school wasn't in the way, and then really focused on being an athlete. And I worked as a contractor. I worked for companies too, but I told them that my focus was on the sport, and my goal was the Olympics, and so they're very flexible for my training and my travel schedule. But I would say a lot of focus was on competition. And then when I found out I wasn't going to go to the 2008 Olympics, my last fight wasn't at the Pan Am Games. On that train ride home, I got a call from a friend who said, "Hey, we're looking for someone to be a web developer," and I like web developing. And he said, "You want to come in for an interview and start." And then I just started my career then. It wasn't as an entrepreneur. It was actually working for a company. But that was the spark I decided to become an entrepreneur, because that company, there was like 17 employees. The owner was not very inspiring. They were doing about 4 million in revenues, and they were just kind of like sitting back and chilling, and no one was excited to be there. And the guy wasn't particularly smart. He wasn't a great leader. It wasn't even, they weren't even making anything innovative. I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's like just kind of coasting, and getting by. I'm like, well, what could I do with passion and skill and kind of learning and creating something innovative? And I had that fearlessness from martial arts to kind of have the foundation. And then I really kind of started exploring the entrepreneur kind of world shortly after that. So started really my first big company in 2009, and it's still operational today. It's called Viafora. It's a big software company for like enterprise media companies. And then, I kind of took the foundation of martial arts, took this experience of this working for this one company and seeing that, it didn't seem that hard, and then decided I could do it. And that's kind of what started the entrepreneur journey, really shortly after I retired.
And then 2020 is your second company, or did you have others in between that?
Yeah, technically it's the fourth. The first two were very small. One was straight out of university. It was kind of more of an experiment. It was real time auction for used cars. It was an interesting idea, but it was more of an experiment, and because we thought it was so cool to build something in real time back in those days. But we had no business experience. We had no one who was a salesperson. It was a typical, here's a cool idea, maybe someone will buy it kind of thing. So did not work. Then luckily we didn't lose a lot of money. It was kind of more of an experiment than something more serious. Then the second one, it's still operational today. It's called tkdregister.com. It's an online registration for Taekwondo tournaments. I built it because we still register people through paper today. And I did this like 10, 15 years ago. But the lesson there was, just because you have a great product, and this one was better than the last one, you still have to sell it. You still have to market it. You still have to put effort into it. Like, you could have the best thing in the world. It doesn't matter if no one knows about it. No one's going to use it. So that was the second one. The third one is this Viafora one. So we have like over 30 employees, clients like CBC, LA Times, and then 2020 Armor is the fourth one.
Good stuff. So what would you say the number one lesson you learned as an athlete or a martial artist that has helped you propel your entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, there's a couple. I'm going to touch on two, which is the best one. Is risk is not... Most people's definition of risk is it's too high. The bar is too high. And I come from a family, my parents are immigrants, so they came here with 2 kids, 0 money. That's risky. Fighting other people, that's risky. So I have all these experiences in my life where things like are really risky that people do. And then there's like starting a new, business. I don't think that's risky, because you're not going to die, you're not going to go to jail. Those are my 2 criteria for something being risky. If you're not going to do that, then it's not that bad. And especially if you're younger, and especially if you don't have anyone to take care of, like maybe aging parents, or if you don't have a family, then what is the worst that can happen, especially living in Canada? Okay, let's say the worst is you go on welfare. Mm-hmm. You're educated, you can speak the language, You probably have some sort of friends. You could always build yourself back up again. And so I never thought of starting a business as being risky. It just never even occurred to me, because I felt like I could always be employable and make money somehow. That's the biggest one, is risk. And then the second one is always pushing yourself to grow, because it's easy to stay stagnated. And especially in today's world where you cannot stay the same because everything's changing around you so much. But I learned that lesson in a hard physical way in a training camp in Korea. And you guys will appreciate this story as well. Is that it was a high school training, and the coach said, okay, you got to run up the mountain and then down the mountain. And this was the morning training, and it took an hour to get up the damn mountain and 30 minutes to get down, and I couldn't feel my legs. And then the coach like, okay, warm up's done, let's start kicking. I'm like, this is impossible. This guy's nuts. And I couldn't feel my legs, but somehow I started kicking. Somehow. They weren't fast kicks, but my legs could actually get above my waist. And it was in that moment, it was such a vivid memory and such an important lesson that I have learned in my life, that I talk about it quite often, is that, hey, my body and my mind said, hey, if you could do that, what else can you do that you don't think you can do, right? Because you thought you were at this physical limit. All of a sudden you weren't. And then like, okay, it's just like, that was just like, you can come and almost do anything kind of moment, right? And you need to be pushed to that lower level sometimes to get that realization. And so I think those two things are the biggest things that kind of were some of my foundations to be an entrepreneur and to look at life and business the way I look at it.
That's awesome. No, I totally agree. And I think being an athlete, especially in combat sports, really forces you to adapt that kind of outlook in life. You know, those two things you mentioned, you apply it every single day as an athlete. Yeah. It's literally, like, once you're in the ring, it's literally fight or flight. And I think a lot of people kind of lack that a little bit, and for lack of better terms, fear kind of holds everybody back. You know, fear of what could happen, so they don't want to take the risk, and just like fear of a lot of things not going right. But as you mentioned, you know, what's the worst that can actually happen? In a fight, maybe you get knocked out, but you get back up, you do it again. Business, if it fails, start over.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing I think that hold people back a lot was, and I mentioned this early on, was people care about the opinions of the other people, right? People say, oh, why would you do that? That's a stupid idea, or you'll never do it, right? Or you're too old to do it. And again, because I kind of had that built in as a young kid, where I did not give a crap about the opinions of people I didn't respect, that also helped me, I think, become an entrepreneur and an athlete too.
Cool. Now let's look into your latest venture, 2020. You're now known as the CEO of 2020, not, national champ Ali.
Yeah.
Let's go a little more into that. So you were on a big Canadian TV show. Can you let us know a little bit more about that?
Yeah, 2020 Armor. Started it a couple of years ago with my co-founder William, and then also Tony Cook from Canada, from BC, very successful club owner. And it came around. So William was sparring with his brother. So he was, him and his family own a club in Oklahoma, and he's been on the mat since he's 3 years old. Him and his brother were sparring one day, and they're like, what if this was kind of like Street Fighter kind of scoring? And then they kind of, and William's a little bit younger than me. He's 27. I'm 38. And so he kind of grabbed people that he knew, his housemates, and tried to kind of solve the problem from a hardware perspective. While this was going on, I was watching Yvette Young, our athlete ambassador, fight at the 2015 Pan Am Games. I was with my wife, and my wife was like, how did Yvette lose? And because Yvette was like, Yvette, like, if you've never seen her fight, I'm like, my God, this woman is a beast. And she was physically dominating this girl. But she lost because of the current electronic scoring rules. And I had to explain to my wife, blah, blah, blah rules, doesn't favor athleticism. And at that moment, I realized this was another one of the lessons one of my mentors gave me, is whenever you have a problem, don't just complain about it, offer a solution. Even if that solution does not make sense, doesn't matter, it's just better than freaking complaining, because no one wants to be around complainers, and you just feel like you're stuck. You feel like a victim all the time. So my solution was obviously to apply it from a software perspective. So I wrote a big blog post about how to kind of solve the issue from a software perspective. William found that blog post. He reached out to me and he said, hey, we're kind of doing something out of our garage. We're looking at it from a different perspective. We're very early stage. And I said, hey, sure, I love Taekwondo. I'll mentor you guys once a week, Saturdays, 10 a.m. for an hour, and help you with your business. I can help you with contacts. Not really looking for anything. It sounds like a cool idea. I have some ideas as well. That's it. 3 months in, I realized, hey, you know what? This is something I think I could get behind. I could provide value, that I have passion, and I think there's a big market. And then we joined forces, and then moved the company up to Toronto from Oklahoma. And then just went all in and have fast forward a whole bunch of things, but have the Adidas family as investors, have the largest clubs in North America as customers, Olympians, met with the World Taekwondo Federation multiple times, been on the show like Dragon's Den. We're in the process of being on Shark Tank, which is the American version. And so it's been resonating because there's the product market fit is there. It's just the timing is right. We're the right people to do it as well. I mean, we're the martial artists. We've got the technical background. We've got the passion. We've got the business experience. So all these stars are aligned. If we were to come up with this 8 years ago, it wouldn't have worked. If this was the first electronic system that came out, it would not have worked because it would have been too much of a change from today, from the way it was, and people would just not adopt it. I think that's kind of what happened with the Adidas Hogus. That was a pressure-based system, but it was trying to make it into points, which didn't quite work. And so, so timing is another thing that helped us. So we've been getting quite a lot of traction for the business. And what we said is, look, electronic scoring systems are super expensive and they're super hard to use and they're really only meant for high level competition. There's nothing for day-to-day training, that's affordable where kids can operate it. And still the whole while the scoring is impossible to understand. So what we built was something that's affordable, something with 4 buttons that's literally like a controller. Don't need a computer, no messing around with Bluetooth, syncing up issues, don't need a monitor. You don't need, as an instructor, to go around and set everybody up. The kids do it themselves. And the scoring is like Street Fighter. And so people got that, they bought into it. And we didn't just stop there. We added 10 different training modes. You can try your power, stamina, timing. And so people really resonate with that, and they like what we're doing. So that's kind of I guess, short version from how we started to being as where we are today. And you still get the guys, like I think we talked about earlier, that kind of don't know the whole story or why we're doing things and say, well, it's just another system, or we want old school back and let's put it back on paper. But I don't think that's the right direction either.
For sure. Yeah, you got to keep moving forward, no matter, you know, obviously there's going to be mistakes. Say adjust. But, you know, you have to make those mistakes to keep progressing. You got to know what's wrong to be able to make something right. So
that's right. And the way we're mitigating those risks is we're saying, hey, we're not going to go off right out of the bat. And this is what, Ladas did. And it's hard being first. We're not going out there and saying, hey, look, put us in the Olympics tomorrow. We're saying, hey, let me run your blue belt tournament, right? Yeah. Who cares if there's mistakes, right? It doesn't matter. Like, it's just you're learning, you're having fun. And you're going to get all this data and experience and seeing, okay, what's working, what's not working, and then tweak the system in these low risk scenarios. And then when you've kind of worked out as many of those bugs as you can, okay, World Championships, Opens, Olympics, I mean, you still need support from World Taekwondo to do that, but you have a much better refined system that's done its trials and tribulations at a lower level, versus kind of what happened with the early days, or is they kind of went straight into worlds, right? International worlds, stuff like that, which is much harder.
So is the goal for 2020 to be in World Taekwondo and have that World Taekwondo approval and use that events?
Yeah. That was I would say the primary driver in the beginning. But then when we looked at it, we said, you know what? That'd be a nice bonus. I mean, our heart is in competitive Taekwondo and martial arts, but if the federation doesn't have that drive either, then that's going to be a big uphill battle, right? Mm-hmm. And we will have a very successful business just by tackling the recreational market. You guys know as club owners and athletes, you have 100 athletes in your gym, 1 or 2 are high-level competitors, if that. 98% of them are recreational anyways. Yep. So that's the bigger market. There's no one that's really attacked that. And so that's what we're going to do first. That's step one. What's naturally happening is people want to have their own tournaments with us, with our vests, local tournaments, in-house tournaments, demonstrations at a provincial, like have a ring where they can have open mats using our stuff. That's great. You're going to have a very successful business doing just that. All the while, we're going to say, hey, World Taekwondo, this is better. This is better. This is better, right? I mean, what else can we do, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to have demo fights, all this kind of stuff. And 2020 Olympics is going to come around, and karate is a demo sport. Karate is a Japanese sport. 2020 is in Japan. Japanese and Koreans, they don't, kind of like each other. There's a lot of history back there from the war, and it's already shown in the 2020 Olympics from venue selection. Karate is in the core area. Taekwondo is like a few hours away. Yeah. So it's gonna be hard to even get to a Taekwondo venue, right, to see it at the Olympics in 2020. So, and I've watched karate fighters. Man, they are fast. They got fast twitch muscles. They don't, obviously it's not full contact. That's the big difference between Taekwondo and karate. But it doesn't look like that. They're moving really quickly. So you get a layperson walking off the street saying, hey, what's the difference between these two sports? Like, I don't know, but that guy looks cooler, right? Yeah. Pointing to karate. Taekwondo's ranked last in the Olympics for viewership. Olympics is a business at the end of the day. Yeah. Viewership being one of it. So you got all these strikes going against the sport, right? They need to do something different, and they're doing it by putting lipstick on a pig. They're changing rules slowly, kind of doing these sort of things, but there's a core fundamental thing that they need to change, and this is what we've been advocating. And so I don't think we'll obviously be, it's too late for us to be in the 2020 Olympics. Could we demo in the 2020 Olympics? Maybe. It requires a joint effort between us and World Taekwondo. Now, that being said, they are open to us. They have said, show us when you have the competition model ready. My thought as a business person is I can devote $2 to $3 million in doing research and development for a competition model, but I don't know if you're going to take it. Yeah. Right? So what do? I said, I'd rather devote the $2-3 million, build a recreational model first. I know people will buy it, have a solid foundation, and then work with World Taekwondo to do that. So that's kind of like the business reason and logic as to why we're doing this path. And so World Taekwondo is still open, but we have to build a solid business first. And heck, if World Taekwondo doesn't take it, karate doesn't have an electronic system. Yeah. And I bet you they're going to be pressured to kind of change their ways. Yeah. So that's one path to get into professionalism. The other path is, hey, does the NBA care what Canada Basketball Association says or World Basketball Association says? No, they're a professional sport. They make money. So why can there not be a professional Taekwondo league that does what they want to do, the rules that they create, maybe using our system, and if it's not what World Taekwondo uses, who cares? They're a pro league. They can do whatever they want, right? Mm-hmm. It'd be great if there's that continuity, from the club level to the amateur level to the pro level, but it doesn't necessarily need to be there. So that's also another path that can happen for us.
So what's the ideal end product would look like for you for 2020 Armor?
Yeah, so there's the vision is 3 steps. Step 1 is what we're doing today. Day-to-day recreational training tools. So you got the vest. There'll be a headgear as well. And that'll be something that's a staple part of your gym, just like a punching bag or a glove. And it's just something that you understand and you use. It's super simple to use. And then what's going to naturally happen, and we're seeing this, is people want to, and this is still step 1 of the vision, people want to say, hey, I want to know what my strength of my kick was over time. It's great that you're showing me now. I never knew that before. But what was I when I was a white belt, a yellow belt? So now they're going to want analytics. That's just naturally what's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a phone app. You tap against your vest, downloads it over from your training session, and then you can measure it over time. Then you want to measure it against your partner. Then you want to measure against the world champion. So there's all these kind of analytics that kind of come out of it. Then you want to record a match with your phone, and then overlaid on top of that will be the live stream of the score. Just like literally a real life Street Fighter match going on, right? So these are all the kind of things that are going to come out for step one. Then step two is this Olympics. So getting the World Taekwondo to use the system for the Olympics, because I think that's something that's good for the sport, and they'll grow the overall pie, because that gets, it gets a lot of visibility. And then step three is this pro sport, creating this professional sport that A, is easy to understand, B, has this consistent schedule that it's on, and C, is clean and professional, unlike MMA and boxing, who cater to a certain group. They do great because they know who they are. They're not going to change who they are. Dana White's going to swear all day, every day. Everything's going to be this black, bloody theme, and that's what works for them. But that's not what works from a grassroots perspective in getting kids into martial arts. So you got to keep it clean. Taekwondo's good at that, actually. It's a full contact martial art, but it's clean, right? They respect each other. They bow. Those are all good things you need to keep the sport grassroots friendly. And then to create a pro sport that has all those elements. Pro Taekwondo actually it was called Pro TKD, kind of existed back in the day. But it was still, again, you had no idea what scoring was. You didn't even wear any equipment. It was so bad. You just hit the crap out of each other, which is essentially kind of what MMA is, but they focus more on striking. So it kind of still suffered that same problem of continuity, scoring, all that kind of stuff. So that's the third part of the vision. So I would be super happy if every club has 20/20 armor, something they're training in. It's used in the Olympics, and there's this pro sport that's just as exciting to watch as soccer. Us three of us would be sitting in the bar. There'd be a soccer game, a basketball game, and a taekwondo game, and everyone in the bar would be looking at the taekwondo game because that's more interesting. That's my vision.
Oh wow. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's you got some lofty goals, but that's totally, I guess that's you, and that's your personality from an athlete now to an entrepreneur. You have to have that Olympic dream, and you might fall, like that saying that you might shoot for the stars and you don't make it, and you'll fall amongst them or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so awesome to hear.
Yeah, man.
Ready to wrap it up, Alfred?
Yeah. I just want to kind of touch on that a little bit. I think it's great that you have all these steps, even though the end goal might seem at times untangible, but the fact that you have these goals, you have these steps that you want to approach, that kind of keeps the goal more clear and more concise, so that you can kind of slowly follow the path, and it's easier to go along that path and not stray from it.
Right. Yeah. And also it's like anything, when you tell people, then you find other people who are interested in that, right? Like I'm sharing with you guys, and so now you know what my goals are, and you might be having lunch one day, and you might be having lunch with a guy who loves to invest in sports that are trying to be into Olympics. Something weird, right? It's like, oh, you know what? Ali talks about that all the time. You guys should connect, right? So it kind of gets you into this circle of things that you don't know how they'll ever happen, but they do. But that's because you put it out there, you talk to people. You don't know how I don't know how we're going to get there. I mean, I have an idea, but it's probably going to go like this, right? I think it's going to go like this, so it's always goes like this. That's just kind of, I found how life just works. You put your vision out there. There'll be some people that try to bring you down. There'll be some people that don't understand it. And then there'll be some people that support it. And that's just the way life is with anything big and lofty and something that you're passionate about, then you'll keep on doing it.
And I think that's more or less going to be what this podcast is going to be like, essentially. What we want to do is bring together all the like minds, all the top level athletes, the coaches, entrepreneurs like yourself. Let's all sit down and chat, and who knows what happens later on. We have that connection now. We've established that network, and who knows, maybe we can all get together and actually put together a great product or a great system. Absolutely. And go from there.
Yeah. It's a great way to, like you said, build a network, and great ideas come out of it, right? I mean,
absolutely.
You guys are. I'm really glad that you guys are doing this, because you're chatting with people, and you're going to see common threads, right? You're going to see, well, that's something that's always happening. That's always a problem, and how do we address it? And you can only do that by doing what you're doing. Is just talking to people all the time from this kind of similar group, and so I'm excited to be a part of this.
For sure, man. Thank you.
So, where can people get a hold of you? If they want to get in touch with you for business inquiries, or they just want to, if they want to reach out to you, what's the best place for them to reach out to you at?
Yeah, I'm best with email.
Okay.
So Ali at 2020armor.com is the best way. So our website 2020armor.com. I am very active on Facebook and Instagram, and so those two I'm pretty active on as well. And that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Cool. Well, we're excited to see where your product carries on. We'll definitely be in touch to see how the progression is. And we're looking forward to have you on for future episodes and just see where everything's at. And at the same time, bring on more of your experience to see what we can do to move the sport, have the best of all the eras back in the day, and combine and to make today's era even better.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, so who knows, in 1 year, 2 years, how this kind of conversation